welcome to episode 123 of the Rich Tees Radio Podcast, your place for horological hot takes, taboo topics, and often unpopular watch opinions. My name is Schmidt, and as always, I'm joined by my good buddy. You guys know him, you love him, Mr. Bro Dinky. What's up, bro?
An action-packed week, my friend. I know you've been on the road. You've been all over the place. That's why it's been a little bit of a late drop this week, as well as
Sorry.
No, it's all good. And in addition to it being my birthday week, so it's been a little bit tumultuous on my end as well, because I know when you're a little bit younger, right, you get all the friends together, you all go out, you all have a rager one night, it's done. When you get
Yes.
older, especially when you have kids and stuff and you have a job, it's hard to nail down all your friends for one night. So what happens is it becomes a birthday week, right?
Yes.
You have
Yes.
to schlep the kids over to mom's house for one night. You have to go to your in-laws for a different night. You have to get together with your friends one day. They're probably going to throw you something at work. It's all over the place. It's not just one day anymore because it's just there's too many people involved and too many schedules. And so it's almost annoying, honestly, which is kind of weird, but
Yeah,
but
for sure.
you do kind of have to spread it out. So it gets a little hectic. So it's been kind of a busy week. I've had some exciting stuff going on otherwise. I know you've been sort of traveling.
Yeah.
We're recording a couple days late, but we're getting out an episode either way. How was your week, guy?
It was good, man. It was just it was crazy. It was hectic. I was schlepping it all over the Northeast. So that was a lot. I was in Philadelphia, New York, New Jersey. I was just kind of everywhere. So it was a lot going on, but at the end of the day, glad to be back. Glad to be recording an episode, albeit, delayed. So that's all my fault, totally. But it's been good, man. It's been good. No complaints.
And if you haven't noticed, the Schmitzter has picked up his new traveling audio mic. Thanks to all our wonderful patrons out there. Big shouts to all of you. But now you can get this quality both on the road and at home. It's going to be great. Thank you again to all of
Yeah.
you. You're the
Let's
real MVP.
let's just hope it comes out good. All right. So that's what I'm hedging my bet on that it sounds good. So
Yeah,
we're testing it for the first time. So
this is the maiden voyage here. So
it is a maiden voyage. If it sucks, I don't know what else we're gonna do. But we're here. We're doing it, and
that's right.
we got my little travel mic. So we'll
That's
see
right.
what's up.
And you had an interesting experience. You got to play around with those Braymonts that everybody was sort of taking a crap on when they came out,
Oh
huh?
man, yeah. So as I've mentioned before, when I'm on the road, a lot of times I'll very quickly, if I can, jaunt into a retailer and find a spot for me to kind of take a look at some product. And this one retailer I happened to walk into in New Jersey, they had them. They had the new Bremont collection. And I was talking to the sales guy, and it was just kind of like, hey, kind of like, what's your take on this? He's like, well, and I could just tell from like the long pause that it was not going to be positive, which it ended up not being positive. But he's like, kind of your watch guy. He's like, tell me what you think. I'm like, okay, so this is a great way for you to not dog the brand, but you let me come to that conclusion for myself. That's honest. I'll take it. So sure enough, I started messing with some of the watches, and I mean the one that I would have been most immediately attracted to, which is the new their new diver. Bro, I'm not gonna sugarcoat this. Not at all. I think it probably has the worst crown of any watch I've ever owned, used, or seen somebody use.
My God.
I was screwing it back in. And granted, I'm a diver. I've used, screw down crowns for years. I couldn't get the threading on the crown to line up with the case tube. And I was so sure that it was stripping as I was screwing it back into place. I'm like, this is absolute crap. And this is a $3,000 watch.
Yep, it's not cheap.
I mean, this is not an inexpensive timepiece by any stretch. And I'm winding this and I'm just fiddling with it. And the guy's like, what do you think? I'm like, I mean, he goes, yeah, that's what I say. I was like, okay. We literally knew exactly each other's feeling about this watch. And I didn't have to say a single word. And neither did he. And he's like, this watch sucks. Yeah, it sucks. Bracelet finishing is decent. You know, it's kind of got like this pseudo rouleau finish and kind of like the Breitling Chronomats. It's not a badly finished timepiece by any stretch, but you know, as I mentioned to you before, and I don't know if we ever covered this on an episode, but you know, when they came out in kind of the pre-prototype versions at Watches and Wonders, um, I pointed out to you that the Compass Rose, like the new Bremont logo, is not perfectly centered with the 12 o'clock marker.
Yeah, that's gonna drive the anal retentive bros out there
It,
crazy.
it's it's still
The
not.
OCD folks.
It's still not. So I don't know what else to do because it'll drive me nuts. Like, and it was funny because I pointed it out to him and he's like, shit, because now he can't unsee it. So every time he's gonna try to sell this watch, he's gonna see that and think about it. He's like, yeah, maybe I can't really. I don't know, man. It's not good. Not good at all. That's for sure.
Yeah, interesting way to cap off your journeys this week. I got the pictures and I was like, oh, this is going to be an interesting review coming my
Oh,
way.
I mean, it was that, and like then I had like a juxtaposed with like the Nomos 35 like pink dial that you gave away last year. Um, but I think you had the 38 version?
38, yeah.
Yeah. So I was trying on the 35 and I was like, ah. And the guy's like, look, man, it's 1,500 bucks.
Looks good on you.
He's like, looks good on you. He's like, I could talk to the owner and maybe we can make a deal. And I'm like, I was so close to be like, yeah, you know what? I'll just have to explain this to my wife later, you know?
That's right.
I was like, no, be
That's good though.
good.
That's one you guys can share.
Be good. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm sure she's not gonna go for that one, unfortunately. But I've tried it in the past. It has only worked partially. But no, that watch is absolutely beautiful. And I was really of the mindset to just buy it. But I would have gotten disowned. We gotta save for a new car. So like buying pink dial watches is not gonna help us get any quicker to
That's
the
right.
uh, the car we want. So
That's right.
what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Yeah. So I also had a pretty eventful week, I should say. I had a sit down with the gentleman who I go through at ACS for the
Hmm.
charity stuff. I had to
Yeah.
sit down with him and the CEO of a very prominent local jeweler here in New York, and I think we're gonna get together on an event. They're, I guess they have a few stores, and I guess they have a their own watch club between the bunch of them. I guess it's, yeah, I'm assuming it's their preferred customers or whatever, or their
Okay.
highest spenders or whatever. But it's like sort of their exclusive own club. He knew what Red Bar was and stuff because I was talking to him about it, and but he's like, yeah, this is sort of like our own thing. He's like, and I think we're gonna sort of get an event together with that, and we're gonna bring in a brand. It's gonna be cool. So I'm pretty excited about that. So I'm gonna get to spearhead
Interesting.
that with them.
Nice.
Yeah, that's gonna be awesome. And it was cool because he and I sort of both knew how things kind of work in the industry, but our friend Paul, who was the guy I'm talking about, who we both work with, he doesn't, and so he explaining like the whole preferred customers thing and
Yeah.
loyalty
Yeah.
and all that. Like he was trying to bring him up to speed on that and like exactly because you know for a normie, it's really hard to grasp um how much money gets spent on watches and who's
Yeah.
buying them and stuff because from the outside, it's crazy right now to be spending 5, 6 digits on a watch, you know?
Yeah.
But to somebody who sells a bajillion watches in a week, like this guy does, he's like, nah, dude. He's like, watches have never been hotter. And he's like, how can anybody be buying stuff? He's like, you don't. He's like, it's just it's the culture. It's what it is, you know. So trying to explain that to somebody on the outside was kind of fun, and we had a good laugh going back and forth. And we actually have a lot of acquaintances in common, even though this is the first time he and I met this gentleman, the CEO. So it was pretty fun. We both think that we're gonna have a good time. We have some room to collaborate, so that's gonna be really cool. I'll get some more info out on that when the time comes, I suppose. Um, One thing that you and I came across, and I also brought it up to him, was the new wrist measurement instrument
Oh yeah.
from Rolex. I mean,
Like why?
this way they can have the size of your pecker on file,
Yeah, sure.
right, for future purchases.
I God, why? Just kill me. Just take me out back and just put me down.
I mean, what they're not gonna they don't want to put the watches on you anymore. They're just gonna be like, oh no, this is you only have a 6.5 inch wrist. What are you doing with this Sea Dweller? This isn't for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I
It's
interest
just
you in a tiny oyster perpetual?
yeah, just one more way to just one more way to gatekeep everybody. Yeah, I really don't know what that's about, and at this point, I'm too afraid to ask. But you know what? They're gonna do what they're gonna do, and
I more just thought it was funny the titles of the articles, like this is the next step. This is revolutionary. I'm like, is it?
it's not. This is a joke. Like this has to be like the biggest troll of all time. It's like, hey, look, we're sizing your timepiece, and the thing is, like, it's taking this computerized measurement based on algorithms, and so, like, at the end of the day, it's still a steel link.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it has a fixed size. So last time I checked, the sales associate pinching the side of the bracelet and telling you you need to take out three links because they've done it 1,000 times is probably going to be a lot faster than you holding your hand up in the ether while it gets blasted with some type of technological radiation that's melting the inside of your bone marrow while it calculates how many links you have to remove in the same way that it could have
Yeah.
been
So
done
what?
by the associate.
It's gonna come out to the right micro adjust position this time with without having to know.
And here's my favorite part. I can only assume that because Rolex is a Swiss company, it's probably measuring it in centimeters, and it's going to require all the U.S. retailers to
Oh
have to
no.
convert it into inches, because God forbid we adopt the metric system. But again, it's like, is it necessary, or is it all just theatrics at this point? And I think it's the latter for sure. Like, there's no way that this makes sense.
Yeah. Now
I'm
you know what it
sorry.
is. I feel like this is just a fun thing for the people to do who are just going to get waitlisted to come in and be like, well, while you're here, why don't we put you on file? While you're here, why don't we
Yeah,
get you on
I
file? We'll
just
take a measurement, and this way they're like, oh, I put my vitals down at Rolex. I don't know. I'll be
yeah,
getting
I
to
don't know,
watch any
man.
day now.
I don't know. I don't get it. I don't understand it. But again, and it's just like, who thought this was a good idea? Like, who thought this was a good idea?
I'm telling you,
Who
I really think this is somebody in their marketing who said this is gonna up the experience, the boutique experience.
If I was a client, this would just piss me off further. Like, I'm sorry. Like, this is just like, you already don't want to give me a watch. But then you're gonna make me do all these, theatrical things about how I can pretend to get a watch because you've sized it now for me. Like, get out of here, dude. Like, I'm sorry. I think
I mean,
it,
unless all their watches are going to get pre-sized now to the owner, and then that way it's harder for you to just flip it over.
I guess
I know they take off the stickers and all that, but
I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't get it. Most of the retailers that I've walked into don't have them yet. It's probably just only in Europe so far. but still, like, you cannot tell me that this is faster than a trained salesperson who's been doing this for 5, 6 years to just pinch the side of the bracelet and tell you, hey, you're gonna need 3 links. Like, I
And
don't
why is
see
it
how.
always three? Why it always is? It's always three.
I mean, because it's a common size, man.
I'm just
It's
saying, anytime I've gone with anybody, it's always three links.
it's. I mean, that's just kind of common because it's all based on the same stuff, and it's your wrist size.
Yeah.
Like for me, I think I'm 4.5 on most watches, or 5, depending on how small the links are. Um, I get a smaller wrist, but it's pretty standard. Like all these circumferences are standard.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, why do you need a computer algorithm, gigantic halo type thing blasting your body with radiation so it can tell you, hey, it's 45 centimeters. And you're like, what is that in inches? I don't know. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I think it's a lot of theatrics for
No, for
something
sure.
that is
For sure.
for something that's not even a real problem. That's what I think. It's like, okay. The only thing that I could see where it would make sense, to be honest with you, is for things like a oyster flex strap.
Hmm.
Because those you have to have sized to you. There's no way to adjust it.
Got it.
So when you buy an Oyster Flex Daytona or Sky Dweller or whatever it is, they send you, per my understanding, they send you a bunch of like different size lengths of straps from Rolex, and they try them on until you find the right size combination for you.
Got it.
So this is the only way that I think that could maybe expedite the process. But it's also like, why did you design a strap that's also retarded and it's difficult to size? Like, I don't understand, you know? It's yeah. It's like, hey, we're not gonna make this easy to size, so we're gonna send you 10 different versions of the strap. So then you can hopefully find the right one that fits you, like a Goldie, like a slipper,
Yeah.
and then then you'll get the right watch. Like, that just seems like a lot of unnecessary work.
Okay. In other housekeeping, shout out to our good friend Strap Habit. He had an article feature in a blog to watch recently. Your
Hey,
boy was also slightly featured in there, mentioned in the pink strap section. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. It's cool. I sent that to my buddy Paul too, just to show him that we're doing big things over here. So he was hyped. He got to show it off to everybody in the office. So that was always it's a good time. Good feel good story there. So always neat. Congrats, Nick, on that. Um, what was the one thing I wanted to talk about? Oh yeah, last week, right? We were talking about those ice cream Christopher Ward 12s, right?
mm-hmm.
And how they had funny names. Now,
Yeah.
this is something you and I came across in the middle of the week, and it was just I had a really good chuckle at this because it's so absurd. Now, we were trying to figure out where the names came from, and it has to do with places in England or the UK, I should say, right?
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And now one of them is the mango flavor is from Maidenhead, which is funny enough sounding.
Mm,
Now,
yes.
when I Googled that, two things came up. One of them was a location, which this is
Uh,
clearly named after, and the other is the I don't know if it's the Urban Dictionary or the Oxford Dictionary
oh gosh.
definition of Maidenhead, and it might not be what you think, but it's more or less
Uh,
it's more or less. Let's just leave it at virginity.
oh,
Yeah, of the female
that's fun.
kind. Yeah.
That's fun.
So I've Googled, that was the first thing above the map that came up. So I had a good chuckle checking that out. You can Google it for yourself. Maidenhead. I mean, it sounds like something that you also might pay $1,000 for somewhere. But hey, that's just to clear up because you and I we were talking about it. We're like, what are these names? So they're all like a little weird, but are they ice creams? I don't know. And then it turns out they all have to do with places in the UK, which Christopher Ward is located in. So we had a good chuckle about that. Just wanted to address that on air.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know why I didn't think about that. We were searching for stuff in Switzerland and we should have been searching
Yeah,
for
it made
stuff
a
in the
lot more
UK.
sense. We are like, wait a minute. Oh yes, this is
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Good call on that one. Good call
right,
on that
right.
one. I don't know why I didn't think that. So
Yeah, aside from that, the last bit of news is Hodinkee getting back to its bread and butter, allegedly.
Yes. Yes.
Allegedly. So, I had to put that one out there and take the temperature of the room, as people say. And the results are kind of mixed. I think a lot of people say hopeful and not so sure. Some people
Yeah.
say shark has been jumped. Some people say good, it's about time. So we're gonna see, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But I think it was a big announcement. They're saying, hey, we realize we've been a little heavy on the sales pitch, perhaps. We've gotten away from our content that really put us out there, and
Hmm.
maybe we should start doing more of that. Now, is it too late? I don't know. We're gonna see, but I'm curious.
We'll see, man. I'm not gonna hold my breath. You and I were kind of messaging back and forth about this. And Ben had to come back and he had to be in the forefront again. Why? Because probably Houdinki hasn't been doing as well as many would like it to seem as though they are doing. Um, but I'm not a hater. They have built something that is truly revolutionary within the watch industry. It's the reason why so many people today enjoy watches,
Correct.
and I would love for them to succeed. But the path that they are currently on is not a viable one that will do that. So, I think given all of the things that happened last year with regards to layoffs and, job postings just or departments just being eliminated for whatever reason, I think a lot of that was certainly detrimental. Maybe it was more of a building process in the sense that like, hey, a lot of these extraneous people were not really where we want them to be. Let's reevaluate kind of what our efforts are and let's see if we can recruit some OGs back into the fold because I think that's really what's missing is all the intellectual thought-provoking articles about the chronometer trials and what is a free sprung balance and collecting Speedmaster or the origins of the GMT bezel, like things that we all were like, this is cool. What I didn't know this. Somebody researched this and created content around it. That has been missing from Houdinki for probably 2 years, if not longer. And I think it's a big problem because those are the types of insightful articles that we as watch enthusiasts gravitated towards, and we've been missing it. And the lookbook and style guides just ain't it, fam. It's like it can be a cool part of Houdinki. I don't want to say get rid of it, but it can't be the only part of Houdinki.
Right.
You know, all the watch bros that exist out there, if you're like an OG watch bro, like you've stayed up way too late on the forums doom scrolling about Seiko mods. Like let's be honest, like that is who you are. You didn't stay up late, trying to style your Cartier Santos.
Truth.
I mean, am I wrong? Like I'm sorry. It's just not the case. So I think that type of return is certainly warranted. It's needed, certainly for the sake of Hodinkee. And again, Ben's like he had to write this letter, and I'm glad he did it. But it also is indicative that like things are really that bad because he's got to step back into the limelight here. So we'll see. I wish him the very best of luck, though.
Yeah, we'll see. Certainly. All right, we'll kick it over to the new stuff before we get into the heavier details here. But yeah, it's a pretty good week for new watches. We had a new mysterious, I'll use the word mysterious, drop from Timex. It is the 1975 Enigma reissue.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Enigma, because, well, if you look at it, there's not much on the dial. And it also has this big bluish dot in the middle that makes everything look like it's floating. It's over the center pinion, and it's cool. It's a little quartz watch, 37 millimeters, very very vintage styling, sort of a barrel shaped case. What would you call this bracelet?
It's like
I don't know what the name of this style of bracelet is, but it's
I mean, it's almost like Constellation-esque.
That's what it reminds me of is like the 90s ish constellations,
Yeah, yeah.
but
I mean,
it looks like an expansion band, but it's not.
yeah. I mean, this is immediately like a bracelet change for sure. because
You
because
hate
that's
this?
just no. It's not that I hate it. It's just like I know this is probably an arm puller.
Oh, definitely an arm puller.
So
Yes.
I'm just like, this would be like, I don't care what bracelets on it. It's gonna come off immediately
Yeah.
for like a strap or something else like that for sure.
Yeah, I think this
Uh,
would look slick on a NATO, to be honest.
honestly, it's exactly where my head was going to. I think it's a funky, cool watch. I like it. It reminds me a lot of the astrophysic from Zodiac.
Yes, totally.
The biggest difference here is obviously this is quartz and not mechanical. Um, but the one thing I wish it was is I wish it was some type of if you're gonna go quartz, cool, but go like mecha quartz where we could get a smooth
With
sweeping.
that red dot.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
I
would
think
look much cooler.
that would have been chef's kiss. I think that even if you sold it at maybe $50 more instead of $200, is $250 to get that look. I think that would have been far cooler, but I understand why they didn't. Ultimately, it's a funky watch. It's certainly not going to be for everybody, but I have always been enamored with these funky 70s watches where they have that kind of design motif. And I like it. I really, really, really do like
Yeah.
it. When I saw it, I was like, oh, this is the poor man's astrophysic, and I'm kind of here for it. So,
Yeah, I'm usually not a huge fan of watches that are not easy to tell time on.
yeah.
But you know what? I like the white tips on the very squared hands.
Yeah.
Um, I also think the fact that they left all the chapter marks makes it a little easier to actually tell time as opposed to something that has nothing.
Yeah. I mean, I still think this is a very legible watch. It's
I think
just
I think that helps a lot. It keeps you in place. You
100%,
know what I mean?
100%. Yeah.
And also the juxtaposition here of the day and date on the 3 side and then the Q Timex quartz on the 9 side, where you usually have that either at the 12 or 6. I think that
Uh-huh.
sort of helps balance things out and kind of draw your eye around the dial and help you out. And the red dot helps a lot too. So
Yeah, for sure. I just think it's a well packaged design. I think it looks cool. And, this is one of those purchases that, like, maybe you just pick one up for the sake of it. Why the hell not? It's just
yeah,
funky enough and it's cool.
this would be one I would want to run into somebody at a meetup with. And it's like, yeah, I just bought this. Like I was surfing at 2 a.m. and just said, what the hell? But like it's
Yeah.
cool, right? And I'd be like, yeah, this is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It was funny. Completely side note. I bought a watch recently. Actually today, at the point of this recording.
Okay.
And if my wife was like, hey, why did you buy a watch? And I was like, well, so long story short, kind of taking the stuff that we learned from the episode that we did a couple episodes back about, spending $50 or whatever. I bought our neighbor's kid a G-Shock.
Nice.
He's getting ready to go to college, and I was like, I think he needs something like this. So I got him a nice little G-Shock, and I'm gonna give it to him later this week. But I was just like, it just made me think of that.
Very
Uh,
nice.
just late night scrolling. I'm like, yeah, this is the one. Oh, yes. But
Awesome.
Timex has been on a roll, man. They keep coming up with these 70s reissues, and I'm kind of here for it. So let's see where they
And
go.
good for them, because they're original designs. They're neat. They speak to sort of what's cool right now, the retro vibe, the whole sort of repackaging of things, but they bring it up to the present. It's not like anything is, crazy sizes or anything. It's just cool. It's here
Yeah, yeah,
and it's cheap. It's all fun. So good for them.
yeah. $200 ain't nothing but a chicken wing.
Yep.
Ain't no thing but a chicken.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah, yeah,
So Yema is coming out with more bangers. I mean, they just keep coming out with cool stuff, which is always a good thing. So they've already had the Yema. What's the name of this thing? It's the Yachtengraph,
yes,
and now they have a newer version of it, which comes in either a white dial or a blue dial. The white dial, I think, is my favorite. It looks really,
yeah.
really
It's
cool.
cool.
It's got just some sort of light pastel colors. It's like a turquoise and a yellow. But yeah, it's got sort of the yacht timer motif on it with this sort of like 3 sub register layout. It's just very neat. Like there's a lot going on. It's just nice, man. I it comes on this mesh bracelet. Every picture I've seen, even on the white strap, looks just really good.
Yeah, yeah. So what bro is apprehensive about presenting or saying, I'll try to say it. So for those of you who don't, or for those of you who speak French, please be generous.
Yeah, I didn't want to say
Um,
this because
so this is the yachting graph, um, croissant, I think is how it's pronounced. Or
croissant.
croissant. Basically translation to cruise. Like, so this is like it's a regatta watch. Um, but very cool, man. I totally think of an unexpected release. Not something that I was looking for, but very, very happy that it's here. So this is a 38 millimeter chrono.
Yeah,
So
at
30,
10 point
38.5.
and 10.3 thick. Now that should ring some bells for you that this is indeed a mecha quartz
Yeah.
chronograph.
Yeah. So Mecha Quartz chronograph. So thin, small, compact. It's a big eye chrono, with the regatta timer function to it. I just think it's funky. And like, if I went with you to a meetup and this was there, I'd just buy it. Like, consider it grabbed. Like, I don't know which one I would get because like I've always loved the red, white, and blue like regatta watches, but like this turquoise and yellow, I'm like, oh, it's so good.
Yeah,
Like,
it's very neat.
it's literally a coin flip for me. I would be happy with either one. And at $369 US, like again, I'm thinking this way. You're $160 away from the Timex that we just talked
That's right.
about. And this is a chrono with a cool complication. So I don't know. It's interesting. I would be really torn. I would be really, really, really torn. So I don't know. Cool watch though. I like it. It's got my stamp of approval.
Yeah, me too. And the only thing that's gonna piss people off, 19 millimeter lugs.
Oh man, cry about it. Like every major strap manufacturer today makes 19 millimeter straps. Like, I'm sorry, it's not an excuse anymore. Get over it.
Yep. So
Even Strap Habit makes 19 millimeter straps,
yeah, I
okay?
listen. I think you head over to someone like him and you get yourself like a 19 millimeter Tropic in white or something and just rock
For
this thing
sure.
out. You
For
know,
sure. You just never take it off. That's the only way to wear it.
I think that would be dope.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you.
But yeah, I'm for it. I like it. Yama, keep doing what you're doing, putting out
Yeah.
cool stuff, affordable prices. I'm for it. So is everybody else.
Yeah, so is everybody else. Hey man, the times are rough out here, all right? It's expensive. But we're
It
still,
is.
the drip is forever, so we're still trying to make sure we got some drip.
That's right. But you got to keep some stuff in the tank so you can keep on dripping.
That's right. That's right.
um, from a brand that I would say is seldom talked about. I don't think it's big in the US, but I've owned one of these before, not this model, but Glycine. I think a lot of people know their name because they are recently joined up with the Invicta group.
Eee.
Dun, dun, dun. But Glycine, most famous for watches like the Airman and such, which I
Hmm.
used to own, which was a really really cool watch, has put out a very well spec'd little skin diver action here. Comes in 39 millimeters, 150-meter water resistance, and it's just a very nice little package. I was talking before the show, and we were like, "There's nothing overly spectacular about this, but it's just a very handsome watch." I mean, it's a steel bezel.
Yeah.
It's got their signature sort of big arrow hand,
Hmm.
if you know any of their glycine design language. And aside from that, it just looks very well put together. And I'll say their leather straps are very comfy. So definitely check this out. It comes in at 1,500 Swiss francs. But the weird thing is, it comes in three colors, but they're all limited editions, which we were both kind of bummed out about. It comes in a
Yeah.
white dial, sort of an off white grayish dial, and a black dial. They have like slightly cream markers, and it's very very handsome. But I am bummed out about the availability of this. I don't know about you, my
Yes.
friend.
Yeah. So 300 pieces for the black dial, and then for the cream and the white, 100 pieces respectively. Um, I don't know if that's just because they're concerned about if this is going to be a good piece in the collection.
They're just
But
dipping the toe in right now.
I mean, everything that glycine does for the most part is an aviation watch, it's a pilot watch.
Right.
They do have a couple like combat subs and stuff
Yeah,
like that
that's
that
also
are,
what I know it for.
you
Combat
know,
sub.
that are more divery-esque. Um, which, getting again, nothing wrong with that. But for me, if I'm gonna go glycine, I want kind of more the heritage piece. And I think that that's where this really comes into play. I mean, the price point is good. The style is really freaking cool. Like, I just imagine like being like a newly enlisted service member stationed abroad, walking to a PX and be like, I need a dive watch. And this is kind of what they would buy. You know what I mean? Like it's just there. It looks good. It's gonna do the thing. Um, I'm gonna say this. I think I really want to try to get one of these. I don't know why, but I'm just like it's so basic and so not awesome that I like it. Like it's just so simplistic in its design and everything that I'm like, yeah, why not? Why not?
And so, for those of you who are keeping score at home, it is the reference GL0479, 480, and 481 are the three different colors. It is the Sea Kraken unisex.
Yes. It's a 39 millimeter diver, 22 millimeter lugs, 150 meters of water resistance, and it's got a Salida automatic movement inside. I mean, like what else could you ask for? What else do you want? 12.7 millimeters thick. So it's everything, you know?
Yeah, I think it's a real kick ass bang around piece. Yeah,
And it kind of reminds me, it reminds me a little bit of Nevada, like style
I could
wise.
see that.
Kind of like what's the model that they have, bro? The
Which one? They're
their main diver, like it's like 1,000 meter. Is it Depth Master?
yeah, the depth master, the
Okay, yeah,
yeah, the baby panorama. Yeah,
yeah, Baby Panorama. Like it's kind of got me some Depth Master vibes.
I could
You
see
know,
that.
obviously they have the same water resistance. That one's more of like a barrel shaped kit, whatever. But it just the lugs and how it looks, the steel bezel, like it's got some Depth Master vibes for sure. But in a good way, not in like a copying way. So it's man, I don't know. I like it. I like it a lot, and I may try to find a way to get one.
Very nice. Very
We'll see.
nice.
We'll see.
All right. Up next is one of your faves. Unimatic has put out four
Stop.
new flavors of watch. Uh, some
Just,
tool watches.
just kill me.
They are all tool watches. It's the UT4 collection. Two of them are GMTs. Two of them are not. They're all quartz. But funny enough, talking about the model we were talking about before, these are mecha quartz, even though they're not chronographs. So you're
Right.
getting that sort of semi-smooth sweep, even though these are quartz movements. Um, yeah, some of them sort of look a little more familiar from Unimatic with the really aggressive steel bezel. Some of them a little less, but
Yeah.
I think they're all okay. I think they're better than sort of what we're used to.
I think it's an interesting take on what we've seen from Unimatic in the past. I mean, obviously this is an effort to make something like super over engineered. They say that these are really, really, really well built tool watches. There's like even some type of like gasket system on the inside
Yeah, I
that
noticed that.
protects the movement from shock. So there's a lot of cool things that they're trying to do with this collection. As you correctly pointed out, two of these are basically going to be a Ronda quartz movement with the GMT function. So you don't have an additional GMT hand, but you do have an indicator on the dial that points to a secondary time zone.
Right.
So it's not really like a traditional GMT in that sense, but you do have an indicator at like the 12 o'clock marker of a different hour time zone based on 24-hour scale, and that could be your GMT hand. The other two are going to be just your regular mecha quartz.
The
Um,
Seiko VK. Yeah.
yeah, it's a VK31 movement. So it's going to be a highly accurate movement. It's going to be a Seiko quartz movement, but you're going to get a smoother sweeping second hand. So like that's what I was saying is like that Timex. Like I wish it had some type of derivative of this type of movement That would have been a lot cooler, but it is what it is. I mean, these are cool watches. I think the design concept of what they're trying to do makes them cool, but I'm just like, again, it's just the same case repackaged over and over and over and over again. And until they can distance themselves from this design and come out with a V2 of something, I still think it's just a non-starter for me. I'm sorry.
I
Like,
do like the little additions of orange here. It gives me a little more flavor than like the
yeah,
sterile, just white that you usually get.
yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with you on that. I really don't. But like for me, it's like I own literally the first generation of Unimatic ever to be sold exclusively through the Hodinkee shop. I don't know, 8 years ago, and there's nothing overly different from the model that I have versus what we have here today. And that's kind of an issue for me. It's like, why would I buy another one of your watches if I already kind of have the watch that all of these watches are based off of?
Yeah,
So
that's a good point.
that's just me personally. And again, like if you've never owned a Unimatic, great, go get you one. But it just like I don't understand why I would need to get another version if they all look like this. So it's me being salty.
All right, we have a new mood swatch. I think this is what people were expecting with the Snoopy,
Hmm.
but no, you did not get that. And you know what? I think if they did put the Snoopy on this would be a little too close
It would have been
uh,
two on brand, two
to
on
the
brand.
blue
Yeah,
Snoopy.
yeah.
So I like the design of this. Obviously, it looks a lot like the more traditional blue Snoopy from Omega,
Hmm.
but it's got a moon phase on this. It looks good. It's got a pulsations bezel, which is cool. We all know the Neptune was the one of the more highly sought after moon swatches, and whether there was controversy around the die or not, people were seeking out the blue one because blue is a popular color, and
Yeah, yeah.
this is going to be no different. I mean, I like the blue loom against the white dial. I like the blue moon phase. So this is the mission to super blue moon phase. I haven't even bothered to read the explanation why the name is that long, but it's a good looking watch. I like it better than a lot of the more recent offerings from the Moon Swatch. I think this one is going to be rather popular.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, like outside of the original OGs, you guys know I like kind of the second iteration of the launch. So we had kind of like the blue, like the teal aventurine one, and kind of like the lava version. Like those two were really cool. And I think outside of the Snoopy, just because it's a novelty type thing,
Right.
this is probably the one that I would get. I love the complication of the moon phase. I love the colorway. I love the pulsometer bezel instead of a tachymeter bezel. Um, I just think it looks very cool, and why not? Like, I mean, my favorite color is blue. This one is hitting on all the right notes for that. It reminds me a lot of the CK2998 that
Yeah,
came out
I
many
could see
years
that.
ago
Yep.
with the lollipop hand. So, but you know, it is what it is. Now, keep in mind, this is only going to be available for a very short period of time.
That's right. So between what August 1st and August 19th, because the 19th I think is the blue moon.
Yeah, so August 1st to August 19th, and only after 5 p.m.
That's interesting.
So you can't buy it during the day. You have to buy it at night. So that means you have basically, in some cases, a 1 hour to 2 hour window to actually get one of these watches.
So that means for all you crackheads who are going to get in line the day before, you are now going to have to wait through the entire business day to get in there and get your moon swatch that you're going to flip online.
Yeah. And this is one of those ones that could actually be pretty rare because it's only going to be out there for 19 days
Right. So
and sold at a very, very unique time. So it's going to be more specialty. It's going to be more rare, more unique, more special. And given that you can only get it at a very specific time, certainly more difficult to obtain. But regardless, I think it looks cool. I think if you're lucky enough to grab one of these, do so. It's going to be a special piece for sure.
yeah, Yeah, gotta agree with you. Last up, Seiko is putting out their last iteration of their Zimbe collection.
No.
If you are familiar with the Seiko Zimbes, there are 18 other ones before this. Some of them a little better, some of them a little better than others. They all sort of have a tie into the whale shark, and a lot of the sales of these have gone on to conservation and things. This one has the whale shark skin motif on the dial, for better or worse. It's sort of a light turquoise-ish blue, and then it's got a darker blue bezel. It's in the semi 62 Moss case. I can't
Yeah.
remember which models have this, but it's the SPB 443. It is known as the last Zimbe. It's a 40 millimeter case, and there are 500 units. It's got a 6R35 inside. The Zimbes, like I said, they've been a little bit hit or miss. I had the gray dial turtle that was really cool at one point. They've had some really, really cool colorways. Some
They
of them
have.
have
They're
been
for sure they have.
some of them have been atrocious to the point where I'm like, oh my god, like why? But this one's okay. It's not as cool as some of the other ones I've seen, but this one's okay. It's in sorts like the one of like the I think it's the same case as like the SPB like 143s and that generation. But it's in that motif, and yeah, feel if you're into the Zimbe, you're into the sort of like the niche Seiko collector things. This is your last chance to get a Zimbe. So if you're up for it, hunt it down. I mean, I'll a lot of them are not released in the U.S. A lot of them you have to go
Yeah.
overseas. There are a lot of them like all over Asia and not just Japan, but like Indonesia and all these places that
Yeah.
yep,
Thailand,
Thailand.
Singapore,
So definitely,
Laos.
yeah, you're gonna have to hunt one down, but they're pretty cool and they're neat, and it's you get the whole fanfare, you get the whale shark box and everything. They usually come with like a very supple and different rubber strap. I remember I was like, oh, this is upgraded. I remember when I got it, I was like, oh, this is weird. Like this is much
Yeah.
better than
Yeah.
the usual Seiko rubber, but they're cool. Check it out. I did this one is not going to be for everybody, but like I said, they've kind of been hit or miss. Um, but I think they were a neat little package inside Seiko, and this is the last of the bunch.
Yes. Very sad. Very sad. Very sad. No, I love this watch. I think the color's cool. The striping is unique. Um, but it's subtle enough that it's cool. So I think if you like it, go get it.
It kind of looks like if you've ever had your watch on and got like sprayed with water, and then
Yep,
this is what the dial looks like.
totally agree with that. That's a great way to explain it.
But yeah, it's supposed to be whale shark skin, and
Have you ever seen a whale shark before
in
in
person,
context?
no. In my studies, certainly, and my middle son actually is in love with sharks, and so I've been showing him every iteration of shark that I could think of, and so he's a big fan of this one. He likes the spots. He likes that it's got a huge mouth. He likes that it's as big as a school bus, and that you can hold onto the fin and sort of just take a ride on them, and that they don't eat
They
you, so that's neat.
they're incredibly docile animals. So years ago, I was doing a dive trip in Mexico, and my wife and I did like a side excursion where we couldn't actually scuba dive, but we could snorkel with the whale sharks.
That is sick.
So there's an area in Mexico between Cancun and Cozumel called Isla Mujeres. So like the Isle of Women basically
Hmm.
is a translation, which is great. It's a place where you want to be.
Who doesn't want to
Um,
go there?
so every single year, thousands of whale sharks congregate to basically mate and give birth to young, and you can swim with them. And it's
Wow.
the coolest thing. They're super protected. Like the Mexican government has police boats everywhere to make sure people aren't like endangering the whale sharks. But I have a video that I could show you one day, um, where I'm literally swimming next to it, and I'm so close. If I extend my arm, I could touch it. But the reason I did not is because it's actually illegal to touch them.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah, especially during like this again, it's a Mexican law thing, but it's illegal to touch them because they don't want to be They don't want to endanger the animals, especially for meeting, things like that. They want to make sure that they can continue to create more whale sharks,
Yeah.
because it's a big deal. So, but it was crazy because as massive as these animals are, when I was next to it, the only thing I could feel in my mind of like what kind of gives me the same type of comfort feeling was like a kitten. It was crazy. Like like sometimes you get like a sense of an animal and like
Yeah.
their personality. Like this gigantic creature that was probably 50 feet long, 60 feet long, and I'm swimming next to it as fast as I can to try to keep up with it. And I'm like, this thing could literally destroy me. And the only sense that I could feel of like what it was like, this is like a cat. Like this feels like a small cat. It was the craziest thing. But they're awesome. And towards the very end, I get tired in this video. And I get to the point where I'm like right next to the back fin of the whale, or I should say of the shark.
Yeah.
And literally it swoops me with its tail and it pushed me 7 feet in the opposite direction.
Wow.
Like
Jeez.
literally the water displacement. There's just a
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
and it's barely moving. Like it's like barely
No, it's
moving at all.
majestic. It's just
And
so
I was
smooth.
like, whoa, like the absolute power from these animals was so cool. But yeah, if you ever get a chance to go scuba diving or subsequently snorkeling with the whale sharks, go freaking do it. It's a once in a lifetime experience. You will not regret it. It is amazing.
Yeah, no, that would definitely be on the bucket list if I could ever afford that now that I have a full nest here. But maybe later on. Maybe we can all go together. It'll be a
There you
family
go. That's
family
that's just what we'll
excursion.
have to do. Yeah, there we go.
But that is awesome. I'm a big fan of any all the sort of big, they call it the charismatic megafauna, but the sort of just the larger than life animals are just things that we sort of take for granted on the planet, and they're just unreal. Even when you go to the zoo or the aquarium, I'm just like,
Yeah.
damn, like, damn, that's sick. But to be that close and be, in the water with them, and even though there's literally just no harm because they're just chill animals, but you just have to like appreciate the raw power and everything.
Yeah. I mean, I will never forget that experience for as long as I live.
No,
That's
for
for
sure,
sure.
for sure, for sure. All right, enough with the oceanography spiel. Let's get down to business. So talking sort of about the Hodinky comeback we were discussing earlier, a lot of conjectures gone into how are they going to accomplish what they're claiming they are setting out to do. And not that we're going to necessarily talk about that, but in general, I mean, look, and even in talking with the gentleman who I was talking about earlier, the CEO of the watch group, the retailer group,
Mhm.
we've kind of all come to this conclusion that the online watch blog space has become very sales pitchy,
I mean, yeah, we've been talking about this for 2 years.
almost exclusively now. It's
Yeah.
right, and even before, when it was sort of making a sales pitch, it was always done somewhat artistically, creatively.
100%.
Right, they would have somebody strap this diver on and take it for a spin, show you what it could
Yeah.
do. Right,
Yeah, and again, it's like, yeah, for sure. I mean, like, I know what you're talking about, and it was funny to see him back on the Houdinki page again because
right.
he had a recent
Well,
article
well,
come out.
that was sort of the getting back to business. That was the like, we're gonna bring back Jason, we're gonna let him do his thing,
Yeah,
which everybody is into, right? Like we used to watch, Cole go fly fishing in the latest Seiko, or we used to watch,
yeah,
Jack just tear apart whatever the new movement was on this watch that just got released. And it was cool to see. Even though you knew it was somewhat of an ad, it wasn't so in your face. It wasn't just the spec sheet
but
and
that's
something
the
telling you
stuff.
that it's entry level and accessible and go get it.
But those are the things that we have been missing.
Right.
Is I don't care. I look, I know at the end of the day, Houdinki is a for-profit business. Okay, they're trading on the New York Stock Exchange. Okay, let's not confuse that. And I think that I think that at some point Houdinki thought we forgot that. Okay. Um, we didn't. But all we were concerned with was saying, hey, look, at the end of the day, we don't care if you're going to try to pitch us watches. You've been doing that since the dawn of time. Just make sure if you're going to do it, that you do it in a way that is exciting to us. That's it. That's all we ask for. We don't need to be, you know, sold style books and lookbooks and like, oh, Art Basel's happening. Look at all the famous rich people and what they're wearing. Oh, look, here's a gold-plated Nixon. Like, what? I'm sorry, like, what? Like things like that we've like overlooked, and it's like I'm just so desensitized to it now. But this is a big deal for Ben to have to publicly come out and say, "Hey, look, the direction that we took the brand in the last 2 to 3 years has been horrible. We can all agree on that because everyone has said it's been horrible. And we've been saying it for years. It's only now come to fruition that in the last year, major news outlets have now started to say that, right? And that's where things start to get a little tricky. Okay. And I told you this from the very beginning. It's like this, there's no way that Houdinki will continue to survive in the way that it is because what it is doing is alienating its entire fan base. The people that made Houdinki a successful business, successful enough to be traded on the New York Stock Exchange, traded or successful enough for clicks and views and time on the website for advertisers to gain ad revenue and money and all these things to be successful. The people who are frequenting their website don't do that anymore because there's nothing of substance to frequent. I remember years ago when I was working and selling in watches, I would check Houdinki's website like 4 or 5 times a day because every time I hit refresh on my browser, there would be a new article. Now we don't even get an article but every 2 weeks. And it's usually some guy wearing a Cartier Santos and telling me I need to wear it with a slouchy sweater.
And an ascot.
And I'm like, I would never do that.
I can't even lie. I used to go on Wednesdays and check out the pre-owned drops before the CNC acquisition and everything. When it
Yeah,
would be listen, it would be mostly stuff like Datejust, but they would have like a top time. They would have some neat stuff come in, and even though I wasn't going to be buying any of it, it was still neat to see what was coming in. And
yeah,
sometimes they would pair it on, their sort of house straps that they had going. But it was cool. You'd see a date just with like a gray down, like a purple strap, and you'd be like, that's kind of hot. I like that. You'd see, like I said, these two register chronos, your top times, your Hoyers and stuff, and you were like,
yeah,
damn, those are smooth. Like I never really considered one of those, but maybe I'm in the market for that, right? Like
yeah, for sure, for
you get
sure.
exposure to a lot of watches that are really awesome vintage that you maybe didn't know about, or watches that you see the impression in today's watches and you didn't know they came from those.
Yeah,
Like when
I
I was
mean,
talking about the poor man's Hoyer, I think it was last week, 2 weeks ago. But
yeah,
right, there's that influence. You're like, oh, this is where that came from. That's awesome. Like this is the OG. So it was really cool to see. And obviously the informational, the informative, I should say, the informative articles and things were great. Everybody learned a lot. Everybody sort of up their watch knowledge, and they would have movement articles, and even the ones that were like, getting to know your different sub references. Well, okay, you know what? I don't know a ton about vintage subs. I know the
yeah,
modern ones, but hey, you know what? Some of these have red text, some of them have, different numerals and
exactly,
stup. So you'd be like,
exactly.
oh, okay. So these little delineations, these little, oh, this one has two lines of text, this one has one, this one, you were like, okay, so these are the more desirable ones, these ones are less, but at least it gave you an idea of what you were looking at. If you were ever to encounter one, you'd be like, oh, this one's a big deal, right? This is a red, or this one, and you'd be like, this is okay, this is the heat, this is what I should be looking out for. It
Yeah,
was just
yeah.
something else to kind of, feed your thirst of knowledge. Whereas
But you said it. a place to feed your thirst of knowledge.
It was that's what it was. It was just you were filling
That's
your head
what
with good
made
things,
it, that is what made it cool.
with useless
Is,
stuff, but it was cool. It was really cool.
well, let's think of it this way. I mean, I remember going to Hodinkee all the time to learn something because it was important to my job when I was in sales. It was important to my customers, my clients, my friends, because they were asking me these questions. And they're like, dude, how are you so well versed in all this? And it was just me. It's like, dude, I'm just researching, I'm learning, I'm reading. Like now, it's like there's nothing to read right now. And again, I understand why they did this. Okay. And I told you, I don't know if we've ever talked about it openly or publicly, but I know for sure you and I have talked about it offline. It's like this was the brands trying to remarket themselves to Generation Z. And the biggest downside with Generation Z is they're completely unloyal. No matter what, if you change your product, your sales pitch, your marketing to fit them, it'll work for a very small period of time. It will. But then they're on to something completely different. And at the end of the day, they're not loyal enough to stick around. So they'll be happy and they'll clap back that they like, oh man, this company did such a good thing for us. They changed their marketing, they changed their focus to approach us, which is the next generation. But this next generation has no loyalties whatsoever. They are completely brand disloyal. So as soon as something does not impact them or it's not important anymore, they're gone. And they brought in all of these new Gen Z writers and all these young people to come write for Hodinkee, kind of as the torch was being passed. And well, they're in the state that they are now because of it.
Well, I also think that you're missing the boat on that. Not you, but by doing that, listen, this is not a young person's game per se,
Not at all.
right? Even myself getting into it, I was in my early 30s, my late 20s at best. I mean, first of all, you have to be able to afford a lot of the stuff, and it's not cheap. But still, things like that are popular in Hodinkee, Porsches and such. Do you know many Gen Zers that are ready to hop out and go look at Porsches? I
Not at
don't.
all. Not at
I
all.
just watches in general, classic stylings. It's not really it doesn't really mesh. A lot of the and especially like the vintage watches I was talking about. I mean, these are going to mesh with you know styles of clothes that are more formal,
Yeah.
well put together. And even though we used to rag on the stuff about the crew neck sweaters or the cardigans and stuff, I mean, you look now, it's everything is sweatpants.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to wear that. It's a complete uh disalignment. They who you're targeting and who is paying your bills before are
Well, I mean,
completely mismatched.
yeah, it's a absolutely a very very stark juxtaposition, and they don't make sense, and
I
they're
mean, you
diametrically
could try
opposed.
to do both, but what you're not doing both either way.
Well, 100%. It's
You
like
could
you're
bring in your Kith people and have them do an article on stuff and try to get the Gen Zers there, and then do your regular stuff for the folks who've been keeping you alive all along. If you were trying
but
to do that
that's
type of
but
thing.
that's my point, right? That's what I was getting at. Is like you cannot entirely change your brand's messaging to one specific demographic. Okay. I've said this to a lot of different brands, and I shouldn't say to them. I don't speak to them, but I've said this about a lot of different brands in conversation and in passing. And a good example of this was last year, much to some people's surprise, myself included. Um, Tiffany's did a co-launch and co-branding with Pokemon. Like I don't know, did we ever talk about this?
We might have breezed over it. I don't really remember. I remember seeing them.
So this was an entire jewelry line that Tiffany's did with Pokemon, precious metal Pokeballs and golden Pikachus with diamonds and all these things. And I remember thinking to myself, it's like, my, how the mighty have fallen. Because you think of a historic brand like the Tiffany, like Tiffany's, and what it represents, the little blue box, the engagement ring, fine jewelry, sterling silver, all of these things that have been built up
Yep.
in the consumer's mind about what this brand should be and what it is. And then to be like, hey, look, all of this, hundreds of years of history, this is the moment where we make a Pokemon, white gold or platinum pendant with Pikachu and diamonds on it. And I'm like, who's gonna buy this?
Logan Paul.
I mean, but these are people that are buying this for the ridiculousness that it exists.
Right. 100%.
Not because they actually give a crap about it, not because they want to support the brands, because they're like, oh, look how stupid this is. I'm gonna buy it because in 10 years it could be worth something. Now, like that, is that the brand legacy that you want your company to be remembered by? Because that ain't it for me. So I've always said, when I've talked about this to a lot of people, I've always said it's like, brands need to be very careful about changing who they are to cater to one specific demographic. What they need to do is keep doing what has made them successful and use marketing to inspire the next generation to want to shop with them. You don't change who you are to attract the next generation. You would change your story and your messaging to inspire the next generation. You don't need to come out with Pokemon things. You just need to talk about exclusivity and quality. And in this moment in time, no matter what you are, you buy Tiffany, right? That's a different type of approach. But so many of these brands have been so quick to be like, okay, we don't understand Gen Z. Let's hire these external contractors and these think tanks. And all these people are going to be like, oh, yeah, I'm Gen Z. So this is what I would look for from you guys. And they're like, okay, let's pencil it in. Let's make some notes. Let's make some changes. And they roll these massive marketing pushes out that's costing these companies millions of dollars. And at the end of the day, it doesn't work. Because me, a longtime consumer of somebody that shopped in your brand, is looking at this like, what the hell are you guys doing? Why now am I going to continue to buy this stuff if this is a direction that you're headed? So what you've done is you, in essence, have alienated your major consumer base for a very small sect of the population that actually doesn't really care about you at all, but at least for the moment that they do. And then once you're no longer culturally relevant, they're going to move on to the next culturally relevant thing or the next culturally relevant brand. And that's the thing. That's what I think a lot of these brands are finding out right now is that Gen Z doesn't care. So you can't cater to them. You just got to get them excited to want to shop in your brand. And that's the difference.
And I think this is where Tag Heuer got it right with the Kith release. They did a
Yeah.
limited run of a watch that would resonate with that bunch just to get their name in their heads, right? It's a hype drop. They're going to sell them out.
Yeah.
People wear them. They have the Kith co-branding, right? I mean, I remember I had some fun and I made a funny post and I had sort of invited people to share their opinions in the comment section. And there's a dude in there who's typing away an essay, proverbially slobbing Ronnie Feig's knob, who is the owner of Kith. And
Yeah.
he's all about this guy. I'm like, oh, this is who they're targeting. Like, this is their guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And because it's a limited drop, you only have to satisfy so many of these people. And I think in that regard, it was successful. Now, the whole joke being with our people, maybe it wasn't resonating as much, but
Yeah. But even still,
but
even still,
I think it was a good move to get those people to have your brand in their mind.
yep.
Some of them own them now, and maybe they
Yep.
would come back to you in the future without selling your soul.
But that's my point. And see, that's a perfect example of this. Is here's the thing. You didn't alienate one client base over the other.
Right.
Okay. So you still have your old school client base that remembers the Formula Ones because they grew up in the 80s. It's a nostalgic thing for them. You re-release it, albeit with a slight twist that now attracts a younger, more youthful client base. And you do it in such a way that makes it desirable to both client bases without culturally changing who you are and the integrity of who you are as a brand. That I think is a home run from a marketing standpoint, from a business standpoint. Okay. You're appealing to both sides of the spectrum. Now, had they been like, oh, yeah, we're only going to do kith collabs from now on, all the people that are in our age demographic that grew up with the original Formula Ones would be like, well, like, I guess I'll just go see myself out. I'm no longer who Tag wants to attract anymore.
Right.
So that was a good move on their part. And like you said, by doing it in a small production, doing it in a limited run, you're not beholden to this if it ends up being a massive flop or disaster. You're only in so deep. But if you change your entire approach to only approach one demographic of people, good luck because this ain't it. And I think culturally that was the biggest fundamental issue that Houdinki was driving itself towards. They're like, hey man, all these old crusty white guys from 5 to 10 years ago, they've had their day. We're gonna start rebranding Houdinki into what we think it should be, XYZ, whatever, whatever. And at the end of the day, those people that used to read this blog used to come and frequent the website, used to buy the magazines, buy the merch, tell their buddies to check it out. They stopped coming, myself included. And then what are you left with? Well, you're left with less revenue dollars, advertising dollars, because you're not getting as much time on the website. You're not getting the clicks. You're not getting the activation. Um, all these things start to change. And then you back that up with less than stellar editorial content. And what do you have left?
But here's my thing: why did you have to fix it? There was nothing wrong with it. And listen, whoever gravitates to a hobby is whoever comes. It's not like you have to change the hobby to make it
That's what
accessible
I'm
for other
saying.
people. Listen,
People will find it.
there will always be a jewelry aspect of this hobby. There will always be feminine watches. Is there a little bit more of a wide variety now? Sure. You know, there are more wearable men's watches that are able to be worn by people with smaller wrists, women, whoever. Yeah, okay. But I think that was a natural progression anyway. That was going to happen one way or another.
Yeah.
These people will always gravitate towards this because they were interested in it to begin with. There was
And
something in
that's,
them that would
yep,
pull them here to begin with. It would have
yep.
just taken more or less time, I believe. Now, to say that you have to grab all these extra demographics, why? You had, for better lack of a better term, a Tiffany brand.
Yeah.
You had a sterling reputation.
Yeah.
You were
And
a house of fire.
nobody
Why do you need to
nobody would
change that?
argue nobody would argue to the contrary, right? I mean, this is the reality. It's like they were at the mountaintop.
Like, why do we feel the need to push different people into this? Just let whoever comes show up, right?
Yeah.
Like people
Yeah.
who like baseball are going to show up to baseball games, right? It is what it
Yeah.
is.
And that's the thing that drove me nuts was like you guys are changing yourself for such a small sect of people who probably won't care in the long term about you. And I was right. And what it did is it alienated its own previous editorial staff, its own things, its own client base, and it made it very difficult for people to want to read their stuff. And, here we are. But you're right. You didn't need to change. You just need to keep doing what made you successful, which was what you were which is what you were always already doing. and stay on that path.
Work in some of the newer content or the newer editors. You didn't have to change the entire face so quickly, so abruptly.
Yeah.
Make it such a giant change. Even if you were going to phase out some of the older people, or even if you were going to, if some of them were looking to move on, right? Phase them out slow, keep your content relevant, mix in the new stuff, you can make it a little more all encompassing, but without pushing away the fan base that made you
Yeah.
who you
And
were,
and
right?
and the thing, and again, if you phase somebody out, you replace him with somebody that is similar, that has a similar mindset, has a similar likeness and or editorial style, so that people keep staying engaged. I mean, at one point it was like a revolving door there. It's like, oh, this editor's a new person. Oh, well, he's a contributor, and oh, he's like, he's gone. It's like, oh, okay. Well, I guess I have to get reinvested into somebody else's, writing style. Oh, no, they're gone too. Got it. Okay. I guess it's this person. And 6 months, oh, they're gone too. Got it. Okay. So it's just like it became so difficult and so not consistent that over time it just became a drag. And I didn't want to read it anymore. And I'm sure that a lot of our listeners who are probably listening to this now will agree with that. And I'm curious to know your thoughts, guys. Let us know, good, bad, or indifferent, good, bad, or ugly, whatever it is. DM us in the comments because I'm curious to know what your take is on this. This is one of those things that I hope this letter is a call to action for the group, for their community, for their investors, for them to really change what they are doing. But let's be honest, the letter in and of itself is admission that they tried something and it catastrophically failed. And they're now reevaluating their business efforts. So they're like, hey, look, we're not going to focus so much on pre-owned watches. We're not going to focus so much on growing our online retail space. You shouldn't in the first place. You should have stuck with the vintage stuff and just left it there. It's a lot harder to write editorial content about things that you directly monetarily benefit from.
Well, that's my other thing is, and this is not just a Hodinky issue, but
No, it's not.
how can we have objective content in this space? Like, can you? Can you at all?
You
Because
can't.
you can't.
Not, not,
Because there's
not,
no dollars in that,
yeah.
right?
You cannot have anything truly objective based unless there's no monetization behind it. That's just the reality. I mean, and you and I know this firsthand. We make basically nothing.
Thanks to
Okay.
our patrons again.
Yes.
You
Thank you
realize,
to our
yeah.
patrons. You're the reason why I have a microphone that may work for this episode. We don't know yet for sure. But
However, but yeah, but that's the thing, and that is the only that, and maybe if you're gonna do like YouTube ad revenue or something, like those are your two options: patron program, YouTube ad revenue. Those are the only two ways you're gonna be able to get an honest opinion out there, and maybe make some scratch. But from an editorial standpoint, I would say it is impossible because
no.
even like I said, talking with this gentleman, his name is Scott, that I was talking about, the guy who runs all these big
Hmm.
retailers. He's like, in talking, we were talking about with our friend Paul, which brands we were going to try to bring into the fold. And he's like, listen, Paul, he's like, because Paul's from, he worked on Wall Street a long time. He's very into the marketing aspect of things
Got it.
before he was
Yeah.
with that. So he was like, he's like, aren't there a lot of people who would want, you know, to get in on this to, get the good publicity? And he's like, listen, first of all, most brands are owned by a larger conglomerate,
Yeah.
and a lot of them don't like to play ball in general, and many of them like they're just not they don't like to engage, like they're not into they
That's
just
that's
want.
being nice, but
Right,
yes, you're
exactly. They don't like to play
right.
nice, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's like, a lot of them think they're for their let's just say their poo doesn't stink, and that even if they have struggling brands within their network, that they're better brands will pull them up by the bootstraps, and they make them who they are. And in some cases, it's true, some cases it's not. But so you're gonna be eliminating a lot of brands there. So you're gonna be looking for ones that have a little more personality. And from the past, we've had Oris, we've had Nomos, right?
Yeah,
The people who are
yeah,
a little more agile, who aren't beholden to those same shareholders and all that
yeah.
other nonsense. And so, although strangely enough, Zodiac is owned by Fossil, and they were cool, which is interesting.
Well,
But
I mean, that was also relationships too. So,
right. Who you know is a big deal. But
yep, yep.
yeah, so that was something that came up, and it sort of shocked our friend Paul. But we were talking more brands that have a little more personality and a little less corporate edge to them, and things like that. So, but it's a real thing. It's an unfortunate side, I would say, of this hobby, in that you have these images that have to be upheld, and to show a vulnerability in the armor is like taboo. Whereas
100%,
you can't
100%.
have an open conversation about that. It has to be nope. We're not gonna talk about it. The Emperor, his clothes are wonderful. Don't worry
Yes.
about it. So it sucks in that regard. And I think I feel like that's why a lot of people come to listen with us weekly, is because they're like, let me hear something different at least. Look,
Yeah, yeah.
are we the most informative podcast? No.
No,
We have
and
insane production? No.
no,
I accept
no.
that. I'm fine with that. We come here to do an hour ish every week and have some fun.
Yeah.
But I think we provide something of value, and I think people ascertain some of that value from us. So
I
that's
I
why we
I
keep doing it.
I agree. And I think at the end of the day, it's like, we had always said from the very beginning, all the way back to episode one, like this is a podcast that doesn't care about, being monetized. It doesn't care about, you know, having opinions paid for. It's like we're gonna be honest, we're gonna be open, we're gonna be sometimes controversial, sometimes with opinions that don't make sense, or topics that, people typically wouldn't cover. But at the end of the day, we know that that's why you guys come back week after week after week, and it's pretty cool. So we're just gonna keep rolling it. But hopefully, in all of this, as I say, you know, I'm critical of Houdinki because I remember what it was like.
Yeah.
I'm critical of Houdinki because I loved how much it brought to the table and how much it inspired me to be a more versed, more knowledgeable, more passionate watch collector. You know, I'm critical of it because it was my first love. And I hate to see it in its way now because I know how it can be. And it's my sincere hope. Ben wrote his letter. This is my letter to Hidinki. I want nothing more for you to succeed. And I want nothing more for you to return to what made you a viable, popular, industry leading watch blog, which is people who know what they're talking about, people who create insightful content, people that can create inspiring videos, and people that are relevant. I don't need to have another world famous rapper talk about their 50 gold Rolex Submariner collection. Like, I don't. Give me another David Robinson interview. Okay. That was to date one of the coolest talking watches of all time because the guy was such a low key watch collector and he had just absolute stupid fire in his collection. Give me more of that. Give me content that's relatable. Give me content that's aspirational. Give me content that is exciting, not only for your current audience, but exciting for the audience that's going to come after us. Give them something to look forward to. Because that's what you guys did for me, I don't know, 15 years ago. Okay. And that's my hope is that whatever you guys can create today will be resonant enough to attract the next generation tomorrow. So I know I always come across as a hater. I don't want that to be the case. I just want you guys to know how much I respect and love this organization, this company,
At its
that I
core.
will be
Yeah.
that I will be critical because I know what it can be. I know how good it can be. I know how good it was. So that's it. That's it. That's all I got. Ben, this letter, bring it. Bring it. Go full send and just get it back. Whatever you got to do. Because whatever y'all are doing right now ain't working.
I feel kind of like the ex-girlfriend. Baby, come back. It'll be different this time.
I
Come
mean,
on, give me one more chance. Give me one more chance. And I'm like,
I mean
no, no, I've been
that's all
hurt
we
too
can
many. I've been hurt too many times. I'm not.
that's all it's all we can hope for. I mean, really, it's all we can hope for. But I just hope that this is them finally waking up and saying, okay, guys, look, we tried it. It did not work out the way we wanted it to be. And here's how we're gonna fix it. And if that's the case, then okay, no big deal. It is what it is. But to just sit there and just try nothing and just continue to try it and with nothing working, that's a problem. Something has to give, you know?
Yeah,
So we'll see. We will see.
yeah, we will. So,
I wish them the very, 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 very best of luck. They're gonna need it.
but yeah, no, I think you and I are both very hopeful that they'll pull it off because I think at the end of the day, despite all the jokes, the satire, etc., we are all loyal to the people who sort of ushered us into where we've gotten.
100%.
And without that, I would not be here. I would not know any of you folks. I would not be talking to you right now. Right.
Yeah.
So we do keeps it real. And hey, you know what, Hodinky, listen, you need anybody to interview all these famous chefs with nice watches. I mean, there's nobody more uniquely qualified for that than me, right?
That
Who could talk
that
to
is
both
true.
sides of the line. All right. I'm a shoe-in. Send me a letter. Shoot me a DM.
I'm a shoe-in. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Get me Jeremy Allen White, and we will yell things back and forth at each other for 30 minutes, and you can cut it up. It'll be hilarious.
That would be actually pretty funny.
That would be honestly hysterical.
And honestly, like that would be a cool guy. I would love to see his watch collection.
Right? For sure. Like, I don't know why I just thought of that off the top of my head, but hey, there you go. Layup. Your first easy talking watches. You're welcome. Run with
I
it.
mean,
Do with it what you may. Just
yeah,
pick somebody good to host it.
please. If you need a bro or I to step in and host Talking Watches for the first time, we will make it impactful. I guarantee it. He's already there in New York City.
That's right. Me, Jeremy, and Matty Matheson, who's the fat dude with the tattoos and the mustache.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be a bang.
Yes. Oh my God. That would be literally watch gold.
For sure. For sure.
Wow.
Anyways, enough wishful thinking. Episode 123 in the books, my friend. 124 coming at you shortly. Thank you all for all the birthday wishes. Appreciated. Thank you for tuning in. And we'll catch you next time on Rich Cheese Radio. Folks, be good. Later.
Peace.